Welcome everyone, it's Trey here on this 10th day of November 2018. I am here this Saturday night with a new friend, Dennis, that I met on either apologetics discussion group, I think on Facebook. And Dennis is I believe he's an atheist, and I asked him if he would be willing to talk about our respective views and discuss them, and he has been kind enough to grant me an audience. So thank you, Dennis, and welcome.
Sure, thank you very much.
Can you tell me, would you mind telling me just a little bit about yourself? I can tell you about myself too as well. I'm always curious when I start these things to get a context of the person I'm talking to. I mean, if you want to tell me a few things about where you live, your family, I think that's fine. But especially want to know about your religious background and where you are today.
Well, growing up in Texas, in Houston, actually, I attended several different churches when I was younger, vacation Bible school with my little cousins and all that kind of stuff. And I just gradually, over time, I think, came to the realization that just didn't hang together logically for me.
Mm-hmm.
And slowly came to a realization that that was just not the right answer. And then in my college days and later, began to research on my own, read this, read that, attended lectures, self-study in various topics, and ultimately became what I think you'd probably call a hardcore atheist. My position is God just does not exist. There's no agnostic. There's no holding out the possibility of or any of that. I'm what I think they call hardcore, and that's me.
Okay, great. Let's see. So, did you have did you go to church at all when you were young?
Sure. Oh yeah, sure.
What kind of denomination were you?
Name one. I attended several. Growing up where I did in Houston, a lot of Baptists, a lot of Methodists. My cousins, aunts, uncles, and cousins were involved in Church of Christ.
Okay.
That kind of thing. In college, I was a musician in college, and I played Easter, Christmas gigs in all kinds of different churches around town. Big Catholic churches, wonderful, wonderful settings, gorgeous places with a big organ and everything, all the way from those to the little country churches out there where they actually handle the snakes and all that sort of stuff. So I have seen and experienced to some extent a wide variety of religious experiences.
Okay, so you did. I'm sorry. I was multitasking. I'm trying to share this event. I forgot to do that before we did. So you said you're a musician then?
Yeah.
What do you play?
Well, I have been. I've moved on to other careers now, but yeah, at the time.
What instrument did you play? Or instruments?
Trombone, low brass.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Huh. And so you're a Texan.
Excuse me?
You're from Texas.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I'm living in the Kansas City area, and I've been a Christian about a little over like 32 years, I think. Yeah. And so I was raised in a religious environment. My mom's a believer. My dad was not. But I had a born again experience when I was 20 years old, and then I was married fairly young, and we had 6 children. So I've got 6 kids, ages 28 down to 15, 3 boys and 3 girls. And sadly, my wife has left me. But I am a dental technician, and so I make teeth for a living, and I work alone, and so I'm kind of an autodidact. If I have an interest in something, I'll latch onto that. I'm kind of self-taught on anything that I know, and I have a fascination with the ideas of philosophical thinking as it relates to my faith. I like to own my ideas. It's really important for me not to just believe something because somebody tells you, but it needs to make sense to me. So I can say I may not know very much, but that which I know, I own it, and it's something that I have thought through, and it's something that I'm willing to change if the facts turn out to be otherwise.
Sure.
And so that's why I enjoy interaction on these issues. I'm just kind of fascinated with ideas of metaphysics and epistemology, which metaphysics means ultimate reality, and then epistemology is how we know what we know. And so anyway, that's great. I appreciate that information. Um, so, from your perspective, um, how do you come to an idea of justifying existence?
Good question. I think you first have to define your terms. What do you mean by existence? What does that mean?
You,
Well,
the inquirer.
what does to exist mean? It has a number of different meanings. If you're
No,
talking
I'm
about
saying for your, how do you justify your existence? And I know you're going to say, well, your parents,
oh, you
procreate.
mean me personally as a living organism?
To be as simple as I possibly can, I'll usually will boil it down to you, the inquirer, because some people want to say they're solipsists, which is fine. It doesn't really matter to me. As long as
Hmm.
there's some type of existence, how do you justify that existence? And at the very fundamental base, we can say that, um, or I can say, since I'm the inquirer, that I, the inquirer, know that I exist. Otherwise, if I didn't exist, nobody would be asking. So that's kind of the most basic fundamental understanding of ontology, is your own existence as the inquirer, and the epistemology is, well, I know because I'm asking.
Well, okay.
So I'll
I,
tell
I,
you as the inquirer, how do you justify your existence? Or you could say the universe, whatever you want.
well, now when you say justify as opposed to simply no, well, that's I would come to this to the same point. If I'm sitting here asking the question, then obviously there is some consciousness at some point
Hmm.
that has to exist in order to formulate and ask the question.
Right. And and there has to be a being behind that consciousness. I mean,
Not necessarily. Why? Why?
well, if you don't exist, then you can't
No, no,
be.
no, 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 no. We already established we exist. You and I both exist, but there is no necessity. There is no necessity, but for there to be some being someplace that caused the existence to be here.
Okay,
There's no
so
necessity for that.
okay, so you're saying there's no need for, if I can put it this way, necessary being. That's a pretty well-known category.
Yeah.
So, was there ever a time when there was absolutely nothing then, in your view?
Yeah. Yeah. Because scientists at this point, cosmologists,
Hmm.
have rewound running backwards like a movie running in reverse
Hmm.
down to something like 10 to the minus 32 seconds following the Big Bang, right
Hmm.
down to a mere hundredth of a portion of a second following the Big Bang.
Hmm.
That portion of time, whether it exists or didn't exist prior to that moment, is as yet undefined. So
Okay,
you could say that's the point where nothing at all exists, or something exists and we just don't know how to define it. I would say that falls into the category of, there are things that you know and things that you don't know, and then there's a whole category of things that are unknowable. You follow what I'm saying?
sure.
Okay, and that would be the events, if there were any events that happened prior to the beginning of the universe, would fall in the category of unknowable.
Okay, so whenever I have these discussions, I always like to start with two fundamental presuppositions for epistemological framework.
Hmm.
Number one would be the basic reliability of sense perception, which we've already established, which means we need to have enough, not to say that sense perception is infallible, of course it's not, but we need to have enough sense perception in order for us to be able to establish that I, the inquirer, exist. So you've already conceded that. You're fine with saying that you and I at least exist and we're having this conversation.
Sure, sure.
And secondly, as the other presupposition, is the basic reliability, I'm sorry, the law of non-contradiction. We've got to have some kind of framework of rational coherence in our inquiry, because if we want to say that there's no logical coherence to what we're saying, then there can be no way to filter the sensory information that we have. So would you grant that as well?
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
What?
And I've
Yeah.
never had anybody question me on those. Well,
Well, I mean, yeah. If you can't hang together a logical thought where one step is dependent upon the previous step, so that you can build some sort of a construction of whatever you, then there can be no argument about anything, about any topic at all.
that's right. So if you don't have sense perception and you don't have an inquirer, and if you don't have logic, you cannot you cannot categorize the information that you have, which is basically what science. Science really is just a taxonomy. It's basically we're taking information and we're putting that information through a logical framework and then putting them in categories and relating that information.
No, I would say that's not correct. I would say that science is basically a question of inquiry. It's asking questions about the natural world. Why does this situation exist? I made this observation. Now the scientists ask, why is that so?
And what do you do with the data that you you gain after you do your experiment?
What do you do with it? Well, if you're trying to figure out, what causes atoms to hang together, what would you do with that information once you've discovered it?
You're going to categorize it.
Yeah, but that wasn't the point. You have to first develop the information before it can be categorized.
Right, but the end goal.
If the information does not exist at this moment in the universe because it hasn't yet been discovered, then you can't categorize it until it has been discovered and codified. And
Right.
If you're using a scientific method, a theory that explains it has been developed. Once all that has happened, then perhaps you can plug it into some pigeonhole someplace.
Right, so it's not really science until you categorize it, right?
I'm sorry.
You can't test it. You can't test it until you can categorize it.
No, you can't. You can't categorize it until you've tested it, because you don't know if it's fish or fowl,
and it's not science until you test it, right?
It's not science until you test it.
Right. So I don't know if you're disagreeing.
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Well, you said that we can't categorize something until we test it, and I agree with that.
Well,
you categorize it. You put it in a taxonomical order and you relate it to everything toward the purpose of salvation, to save existence.
Sure. Well, that ultimately happens because you're trying to figure out what's going on in the natural world. And so, yeah, if you make this discovery of this small thing in this small area, and you'll find a pigeonhole someplace that it fits into.
Right.
But that wasn't necessarily the original prime mover intent. The prime mover intent was to explain in a scientific way the observation that you have made. And then once you have that, then you can possibly categorize it.
That's right. I don't think we're in disagreement there. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So, so if you grant basic reliability, sense perception, and the law of non-contradiction, it is not possible for you then to concede or to assert that everything came from nothing, because if you haven't, what you're doing is you're positing an effect without a cause, and you're also saying that, oh no?
No, not saying that at all. I'm not saying that there was a nothing.
Oh,
originally. No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that there is a point prior to which remains, at this moment at least, undefined.
Okay, well, that's not what you said. I said, is there ever a time when
That's exactly what I've said. I will not grant you that the universe came from nothing, which is where you're trying to go with this. It's something came from nothing. I'm not gonna go there. What I'm telling you is that we can look at the universe and run it backwards as if it was a videotape or a movie film, down to a point, mere fractions of a second, hundredths of a second, literally hundredths of a second, following the Big Bang. All of that happened after that has been pretty well established by cosmology and physics. What is left is what happened prior to that moment. And that falls into a category of items that, as of right now anyway, are unknowable.
Okay. So
that's not to say that they are nothing. That's not to say that at all. It just says that we don't have any way of accessing the information on the other side of that moment.
Okay. Well, that's not what you said. You can go back and look.
That's exactly what I said.
No,
that's exactly what I said.
Dennis, let me speak. I said, was there a time when there were absolutely nothing? And you said yes.
I did not. I said no. I said there is a point beyond which we have no information.
Okay. Well, I mean, you can go back and watch. That's fine. But and that's fine. That's, if you don't want to say that everything came from nothing, that's good, because it's not possible. You cannot have something be and not be at the same time in the same relationship. You can't have. If there ever were a time of absolutely nothing, we would have nothing today. We can't even.
How do you know that? How do you know that? How do you know that? What do you base that statement on?
it's funny now you're jumping back to the other side.
No, no, I'm asking you. I see exactly where you're trying to go. I'm not going to let you go there. There is a point beyond which we simply have no information, and
Okay,
it's incorrect for you to try and assert that that point represents nothingness, because that just
I
isn't
didn't say
so.
that. It doesn't make sense. There's no. It's not. I'm saying the same thing. I'm saying something. If you want to say there are absolutely nothing, we can't even think of the idea of nothing because the idea of nothing is something. It
Well,
can't
yeah,
be.
but let me point out, Trey, you're the one that keeps saying that, not me.
Keep saying
You,
that.
you're the one. You're the one that keeps going down to the nothing rabbit hole, and I'm not going there with you. I'm not taking on this. There
Well,
was
that's
nothing,
good. I think that's a good thing
and then
because
there was some, or there has to be a prime mover or something else mixed into the equation to make all this stuff happen.
okay,
That's not true. That's just not the way it works.
okay. So it's not possible for something to come from nothing. You agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, that's good because, like I said, you concede the law of non-contradiction, and if you hold the law of non-contradiction, you have to assume that something cannot come from nothing because the law of non-contradiction says something cannot be and not
Okay.
be at the same time. The same.
Okay. But at the same time, you have to be careful how you're going to define nothing.
It means it's a negation of ontology. That's what no thing means.
Okay.
And you've got
Now, now, now,
like
now, do you have
games,
now?
but that's what I'm saying.
You're really breaking up. It's hard to follow you.
I'm sorry.
Do you have a point in your mind then where this nothing condition existed?
No, it's not
Okay.
possible. I'm just saying that's why I don't think that it's well, I don't think it's possible. Logically, it's not possible to have nothing and then something.
Okay. Well, my only point would be that many people will if we go back to this Big Bang beginning universe stuff again, will say that that's the point where nothing became something,
Yep, and
and
it would be
that's
shocking.
that's just not possible, and it's factually incorrect.
I agree. So you would concede
Okay.
that there's something there's existence that is eternal.
I didn't say that. I said that there was a point beyond which we have no information.
Okay, but there's only two choices. There's nothing and there's something, right?
That's not true. That's a false choice. No,
Give me
there is a point beyond which we simply have no information, and
but there,
that would be
there.
the 100 millionth or so of a second following the actual Big Bang occurrence.
Okay, so there's only two choices, though, right?
No, there's not two
All right,
choices.
what's the third choice?
The choice.
No, because that's not an answer.
No, I'm just telling you that when I say to you, beyond this point we simply have no information, you are insisting that beyond that point there is nothing. And I didn't say that, and I don't think that's a supportable statement.
No, I've never said that. I said that's irrational. That's what I keep saying over and over. It's not possible
Well,
to be nothing, so it had to be something, right?
I don't know. I have no information about that.
Well, you
I
do
keep saying
too.
I
It
have
either
no
exists or it
information
doesn't.
about
There
that.
are only 2 points that you can hold. It's either nothing, which you've already conceded it's not. So there was something, right?
So when I say to you it's not possible to know what occurred before this point.
Well,
That is
well, according to law of non-contradiction, would you agree with that? It couldn't have been
No,
nothing.
I don't. No, I
You,
don't. I'm telling you.
you
I'm
just
telling
told
you.
me
No,
it's
no,
not
no, no.
possible.
Listen once again, because you missed it. There are things that you know. There are things that you don't know, and then there's a category of things that are unknowable. You see what I'm saying? What we're talking about now are things in the category of unknowable.
So it
So
could
for
have been
you,
nothing.
so wait a minute. So for you to go to this category of unknowable things and assign it some kind of a value, in your case, nothingness is incorrect,
You
and
made that assignment.
that is non-logical.
You assigned it that. You said there's
I
no.
did not. I did not. I keep telling you, it's unknowable. It's undefined. It's
Could it
division
have
by
been nothing?
zero.
Could it
What?
have been nothing? We've gone.
No.
You both done both. Oh, it could not have been nothing.
Well. I don't know. Again, it's unknowable. I can't say. I can't say.
Oh my
I can't
God.
say that it was or that it wasn't. I don't know. It's unknowable. It can't
You
be
already
known.
told me it wasn't possible.
What wasn't possible?
Did you? I mean, you go back and listen to this. It's going to be you'll laugh at yourself. But you're going back and forth here. You said that it's not possible for something to come from nothing.
You said that, and I agreed.
It is possible.
And I agreed. What I'm telling you, and you just refused. You just refused this. Is there is a point beyond which information is not possible to obtain. We simply don't know, and we cannot know. It's not possible to know
Why
that.
can't we know? What prevents us from knowing?
Because information from this universe cannot transfer to another universe, or whatever happened prior to this universe was
Why?
existing. Why?
You're violating the law of parsimony here.
No. It isn't possible. There are
Why?
things.
Tell me why.
I'm trying to tell you why. There are things that occur if you ascribe to the multiverse, to the theory of multiverse, right?
Mhm.
And some event occurs in another universe, of one of these multiverse other universe things. There is no way for that information to be known and understood and transfer into this universe,
Why?
and vice versa.
Why?
They're different universes.
So what?
That's the definition.
So
Information
what?
from one
Why is it different?
is wholly
If you live
contained
in a
within
different
one.
state, can you know about a different state?
A different state, like Utah, different state.
Kansas and Texas. Can you know about
No,
Kansas?
it's in the same universe. It's a whole category of otherness.
What is it about these universes incommunicable?
Excuse me?
What is it about these universes that you cannot know? You know for certain that you cannot know. How do you know that? You have to justify it. You're violating Occam's razor.
No, horseshit. No. What I'm telling you is that if another universe exists, that it is impossible. So far as we, I'm trying to tell you, and you stop interrupting. So far as we understand the way these things under the theory, and there are different theories, that the information contained within one universe is wholly contained within that universe, and it does not transfer to another universe. Now,
you
why?
just keep asserting it. You got to give me the evidence.
Why does information not transfer from one universe to another universe?
Why can't it?
That's
impossible.
Contained within the definition of universe, because if it did, then it wouldn't be a different universe.
Why?
It would be the same universe.
I don't understand. Why can one universe not necessarily incommunicable? There's no reason for that.
There is a reason for that. There's a cosmological reason for that. Okay, and give me a second, and I'll give you the name of the law. The conservation.
The law of conservation.
No, conservation of information, I think. Similar to the law of conservation of motion, conservation of heat, conservation of information, meaning that information of any kind. Now, information in a cosmological definition typically means some kind of particles or some kind of energy. Mm-hmm. As a definition. It's not going to be a broadcast of I Love Lucy or something. Mm-hmm. Those particles, energy, those kinds of things that constitute the one universe are not transferable to another universe. If they were, then it would not be a different universe. It would be the same universe.
How is that? Why does that follow?
Listen, I didn't build it. I'm just telling you how it works.
Well, yeah, but you're just telling me, somebody told me this, therefore it's true. That's not a justification. We don't just do things because people tell us that. We need to own them with facts.
Well, then okay. Why? How can I explain?
And a multiverse doesn't work anyway, because it just multiplies the problem infinitely. You cannot have a universe. You cannot have an infinite regress of potential being without actual being.
What?
You when you were born, you had the molecules that made you up were potentially Dennis, but they were not you. But you had to be acted upon by outside forces in order to actualize you as the being that you are. Now, that which actualized you itself must be actual, otherwise it cannot actualize you. And if you want to continue to go that process as far back as you want, you're going to have potential being at base that created all actual being, but it cannot create anything because it's potential, not actual.
Okay, now I see where you're trying to go with this. No, that isn't necessarily true. Okay. That isn't necessarily true.
It's a law of non-contradiction.
Because the natural world, the natural order of the natural world does not require outside influence to make it exist the way that we perceive it. It exists more or less largely self-contained. And it operates the way it does because
so the multiverse is not true.
I didn't say that. That falls once again in the category of things that are, from our perspective here in this universe, are unknowable in
Oh,
another universe. You can't say that it does or can't say that it doesn't. You don't know. You simply don't know.
without justification. So
Just
you're
take
saying
my word.
you're
Just
saying
take
there,
my word.
yeah, that's it.
Just take my word for it. You cannot know. You cannot transfer information from one universe to another universe. Otherwise, they would automatically be the same
No,
universe.
they wouldn't. There's no reason
Yes, they would. Yes, there would.
just because it's convenient for you to say that.
No, it's not convenient. It's the law of confirmation of information, or there's another law for it, and I'm trying to but it is true that it is the case so far as we know. I mean,
Well, I'm not going to believe
that,
it until you
well,
actually give me a reason to believe it, rather than just
whatever.
saying that's the
Once
way it
again,
should be.
once again, we come down to a point, and at that point, information beyond that point is unknowable from our perspective here.
How do you know that?
We simply cannot know that.
How do you know that?
How do I know that? What do you mean? How do I know that?
If somebody told you.
No,
You're just believing it's
no.
blind faith for you. You don't have a reason
Okay.
for it.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do.
Okay.
You can't tell what happens. And I've had this discussion with a few other people,
I'll
and
bet you.
it comes down in a similar discussion, and it comes down to, we look around, we see the world, we see the universe as it is, the way we're experiencing it now, and we run that backwards. We reverse the arrow of time, if you will, and it comes down to a point where the universe ultimately or initially came into existence, which we call at this point the Big Bang. But before that, we have no way of transferring information from that time before that point into this universe where we are right now. It simply cannot be done.
Why?
It just doesn't do it. The universe doesn't work that way. That's not the way it works.
How do you know?
Why doesn't a fish live in the tree? I don't know why. Why doesn't the elephant swim in the ocean? I don't know. That's just not the
Because the
way it
elephants will
works.
die in the ocean.
That's just the way it works.
Okay, so you're saying that your justification is it is this way because I say it's the way it is.
No, it's
You
this
have a
way
certain
because
argument?
it's this way because this is when you put all the elements of the initial conditions together back into the same condition, you get this result. This is the result that you get.
Okay, why? You're just saying that's just
Well,
the way it is.
well, why not? You tell me why not.
Because
Let's
there's
go
no
to that way.
reason
Why
why
not?
it cannot be communicated. You're just saying that just because
And tell me why you say that. What do you know about it? What do you know about that I don't know about it?
I see, because there's no reason to believe that we
There
cannot.
is, but
What is
there is.
what is the reason?
But there is. If information transfers from this universe to another universe, then it's not a different universe. It's the
Why?
same
Why does
universe.
it have to be the same universe? Why does it have to be
Listen,
incommunicable?
I didn't build it. I'm just telling you how it works. Information that transfers from this universe to another universe,
Well,
it's not a different universe.
you're building it right now. You're just
No,
making it up.
I'm telling you how it works. I
How
didn't
do you
build
know
it.
that? How do you know that it works that way?
What's your point? Get to your point,
Uh,
because I know that you've tipped your hand already. I know where you're headed with this. Why don't you go ahead and make your point?
well, and let me put it this way, okay? If
Yeah.
something exists, there are only four possibilities. It is either an illusion.
Wait. Stop right there.
Okay.
Four possibilities. Say that again. If something exists, there are only four possibilities.
Yeah.
Okay, go.
Number one, that which exists is an illusion. Now, we've already conceded that that's not correct, because if it were an illusion, then we wouldn't be sitting here talking about it. Descartes had it.
Stand by one. Stand by one. Stand by one. That which exists must not be an illusion.
Well, it could be an
Why?
illusion, but it doesn't work.
Tell me why.
Are you familiar with René Descartes' cogito ergo sum?
Más o menos, sí. A little.
uh,
Yes, actually, I am.
Descartes said, "What are the only things?" He was a rationalist, and he said, "What are the things that we cannot doubt?" He was trying to figure out a formidable argument for epistemology, and he said, "Well, the one thing that I cannot doubt is that I am doubting, because in order for me to doubt that I'm doubting, I'd have to doubt that I'm doubting, and it's me who's doubting. And if I'm not doubting, then there's no inquiry. So since I am doubting, I know that I
basically I think, therefore I am, or I
yeah, and that's
basically that.
that's
Yeah.
what
Now,
we discussed at the beginning.
well, go to your other 3 points then.
Okay, so the second point is that which exists is self-created. It created itself, and that is a violation of the law of non-contradiction. If something can, this is say everything out of nothing. We've talked about that as well. It cannot be and not be at the same time and in the same relationship. But to create itself, it have to be and not be at the same time, same relationship. So that doesn't work. The third option is that which exists is self-existent. And you've alluded to this, that you might think that the universe is self-existent. The problem with this is that that which is self-existent cannot change, nor can it be acted upon anything else, because change is a measurement of contingent being, because every time something changes, it changes because something is acting upon it. It is subject to that which enacts the change upon it, and therefore it is not self-existent, it's contingent by definition. So everything that we know in this universe is not self-existent because it changes. The fourth
I'm not sure that hangs together, but go to number 4. Go to number 4.
Okay. And the fourth one is that which exists is created by that which is self-existent. So contingent being was created by that which is self-existent, which is necessary corollary.
All right. See, we get to this same kind of an argument, and you've seen this expressed in many different ways, but you're talking all around the whole watchmaker theory. If you're walking on the beach and you find a watch on the beach, you know that there's a watchmaker somewhere in the universe, right?
No, it's actually a teleological argument. That would be the fifth way of St. Thomas.
Yeah.
I'm using Thomas
except the problem with that argument and all other similar kinds of arguments is they deal only with inanimate objects. Living objects have a self-replicating capability. They replicate themselves. So they're non-living objects do not. Living objects, living organisms, from single-celled amoebas to multicellular organisms like ourselves, have the ability to self-replicate. Objects in the universe.
So how did that happen? Are they self-existent?
What do you mean, are they self-existent?
You got yourself into a problem. This is a problem even your side admits. Abiogenesis.
Abiogenesis. Well,
yeah. How did life start then? How does self-replication begin? You said that you made a distinction between self-replicating and non-self-replicating. Your view necessarily says that non-self-replicating started replicating.
Well, but we're still talking about organic compounds, organic molecules. We're not talking about we're not talking about metallic parts here replicating themselves, like in the Terminator or something.
Right.
We're not talking about that.
It's a conundrum for evolution.
It's not a conundrum. It's not a conundrum. It is not, because in experiments going back to 1950s, where the primordial soup of the early Earth in a beaker creates amino acids, the building blocks of life.
Yeah, but the problem with that is that you just refuted yourself, because you said that the problem with the watchmaker is that.
Well, stand by one. I'm not done. So once in a laboratory setting in which the primordial Earth was replicated, amino acids spontaneously appeared. Now, amino acids are the building blocks of life. They are the stuff from which RNA and DNA ultimately is made. Right? Now, granted, at this moment in time, scientists are working on taking the step from those self-replicating molecules into actually living beings. What you have to do at that point is you have to figure out and you have to decide how you're going to define a living being, which is a problem, which is a serious question that the people who are exploring Mars and the moon and others looking for life have to know whether or not they found life. And so they have to devise a definition for what is actually life. And that is what they're working on right now. In a few years, I'm sure that the answer will be found.
Okay, so you concede that you said that there's a problem with the watchmaker argument, but now you have changed your mind and it's not a problem.
No, don't put words in my mouth. I'm telling you that inanimate objects, non-organic molecules, will never self-replicate outside of a Hollywood movie. Organic molecules have been demonstrated and have replicated themselves in laboratory experiments right now here on Earth. That has happened. So if you want to extend your definition down to merely self-replicating molecules, we're already there. We've got that already.
Okay, so what's the problem then with the watchmaker argument?
The watchmaker argument falls apart because it's an inanimate object. It does not contain organic
Okay,
molecules.
now, and we're moving away from the other one. This is a different argument, but I'm happy to go here. So you're saying that teleology does not justify um, uh, there could be teleology without purpose, because the watchmaker argument is a teleological argument.
Okay, now, give me your definition of teleological argument.
Telos, it's just the word. It means end, goal, or limit, the final
Okay.
end. No,
Okay.
value. There is value in its universe. How does inanimate object give rise to purpose or goal?
I'm not sure they do.
I'm sorry?
I'm not sure they do. Why would they?
Did you go to say that same statement?
An inanimate object give rise to a goal or a purpose in life? No, I'm not tracking you. What are you talking about?
Because you're saying that inanimate, that according to your perspective, that there was no purpose and then purpose arose.
I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying that at all. Who said?
Okay, so where did purpose come from?
What purpose? Who has purpose? Why do you need
just
purpose?
To say that.
No. What are you talking about?
Did you not?
No.
Huh?
No.
You don't have. There's no purpose in your having this conversation. You didn't goal to get on the computer or buy a microphone?
No. You're slipping definitions. You're moving goalposts. Hold on a second.
Teleology is what the argument that you brought up was.
Stand by one. Does an organism, a simple organism, have a purpose in life? Does a simple, an earthworm, a flatworm, a single cell, does it have a purpose in life?
Yes, the sanctity of existence. It is programmed to...
Now stop right there, because I would disagree with that. Life exists because life exists. It doesn't necessarily wake up a living being with a goal in mind. It doesn't do that.
Well, why are you going right now?
I am not. A watch, for example, doesn't even go that far. Because a watch is an inanimate object.
But it's a watchmaker that makes it for the purpose of the sanctity of existence.
That's a completely different question.
Why is that different? It's teleology. It doesn't matter whether it's a verb or a noun. It doesn't matter.
It does matter.
It's irrelevant.
It's not irrelevant, because you're injecting purposeness into life. Life doesn't necessarily have purposeness. When you and I grow up to be sentient beings and we develop this gigantic prefrontal cortex and all this other high-level thinking and so forth, we imagine ourselves to have purpose in the universe. But in fact, it's a lie. It's an illusion. It's an illusion.
Okay.
It's a total illusion.
Are you willing to go and shoot yourself right now?
Why would I do that?
Because your life doesn't matter.
Well, there are a lot of other reasons to shoot yourself besides that.
It's a sober question. Can you live consistently with what you say is true?
No, it's a dumb question. It's jumping completely to the opposite end of the scales and making some kind of a ridiculous comparison. No, absolutely not.
Does your life matter?
Matters to me.
Why?
All right,
Why are you programmed to a lie?
Okay, now stand by one. Don't put words in my mouth. I didn't say that. You did, and that's not what we're getting at here. An organism. Let's simplify the argument and take you and I, humans, out of the picture. Let's talk about an earthworm. Does an earthworm have a sense of purpose in his life?
It is programmed towards something that is survival, right?
How do you know that? Tell me why.
Because
Tell me why you think that.
Tell me why. When you try to cut it in half, it struggles to get away.
Okay. No, actually, the earthworm will cut in half and grow again, but that's...
It avoids pain, does it not?
I don't know. I suppose so, but that's merely an instinctive reflex. That's merely a survival reflex.
So it's programmed to survive, right?
Yeah, but is that a purpose?
Then you concede the point.
Well, now wait a minute. So why if that's all the earthworm has to look forward to is simple survival, why doesn't it shoot itself?
Because it just like you, it is programmed to live.
Okay.
It is purposive.
Well, see, I would propose that is merely a survival instinct. That's a survival,
right. Survival is the goal.
A survival mechanism, but that's not the purpose. That's not some higher order
Yes,
purpose.
it is. You just said it. Survival is its goal, its purpose.
Its only reason for existing is survival.
Right.
To eat and make other little organisms just like itself, and that's about it.
And that's a goal, right?
What? No, that's not a goal. It's the purpose. There's a difference. No, it's
What
not a
is the
goal. No, it's
difference?
not a goal. A goal is a termination. A goal is a termination. A purpose is an ongoing purpose. A goal is a termination. Once you reach the goal, it's a termination.
A goal is to
Purpose
make
is
it to the
different.
next minute.
That's a purpose. It's not a goal
It's
implies to
many
me.
goals over and over. We are constantly goaling to live. Every
Well,
sentient creature is.
well, let's call that a purpose then. Okay.
Okay, that's fine. Telos is purpose. It's the same thing. That's what the word means.
Okay. So what is your purpose in life then?
To glorify God, the very one who gives me existence, to
Okay.
love him.
Okay. And so
He is
that
existence himself. And since he is the fount of existence and existence is good, it only logically follows that I worship and love him and adore him who gives existence to all.
okay. And so if you look around you and you see naturalistic explanations for everything in the universe, everything on this planet and all the planets in the solar system, you don't need to invoke some kind of supreme being to explain all of those things. So why
Well,
do you do that?
I
So why
do
do you
if
do that?
I do if nature is contingent. If it's dependent, it cannot exist without that which gives it
But
its
nature
being.
is not contingent. Nature's just
Oh,
nature.
nature
It's
is
not contingent.
self-existent? There's only two
Yeah,
choices. So nature is self-existent.
nature is nature.
Okay,
Now,
do you
when you
remember what
say,
I said? That which is contingent changes. Does the universe change?
yeah, it does.
Okay, so it's contingent. It's dependent in its existence.
Dependent upon what?
Whatever it is that enacts the change upon it, which ultimately must be something that has pure actuality, that which is self-existent.
External from the universe.
Well, it depends on how you define universe. If you want to say all that is contingent, you say the universe, or you can say all that there is would include God as well.
Well, but see, God doesn't exist. So
Well, how do you know that?
you
I
can't.
just gave you a
How
reason
do you
and
know
you
He
refuted it.
does? How do you know He
Because I
does?
am dependent in my existence. Is it that difficult?
No, you have decided using your large brain
Logic.
that no, it's not logic. It's not logic at all. Looking around the universe, looking around you don't need this external supreme being to explain everything that you see. It's just not necessary. Now, if you wish in your personal life to bring that in and say, okay, okay, that's fine. That's
Like
fine.
you do with
But
purpose.
but ultimately it isn't necessary. You would live just fine without that, just like
Okay,
a
so tell me
lot of other people do.
which one of the other four options, the other three, that you would choose over that. There's only four options.
Well, now you keep saying that, and I'm not sure that that's true. Go through those again.
All right. Number
Because
one is it's an illusion. If
okay,
something exists,
stop right there. Stop right there. It's an illusion. How do you know it is or isn't? You say ergo cum summa.
cogito, ergo sum.
Fantastico. Okay, that's great. However, you're still dependent upon using your own five senses to experience the world around you. And
Uh-huh.
you know, certainly you do know that there are people whose five senses have gone crazy, have gone haywire, and they wind up in hospitals because they hear voices that aren't there, they see things that aren't there, they have sensations of bugs crawling over and things like that. So you cannot depend on your natural five senses to say, I know this because I'm experiencing the universe through my five senses, and that there's no other possibility. So it may be an illusion. It may in fact be an illusion. And I would say that you are suffering from some kind of an illusion, a delusion or an illusion, based on exactly what you just said.
Okay. Well, but you're the
What's
one
your
who's making the statement, right?
what's your number two?
Okay. Yeah, I think you know that didn't work. All right. Number two is
No,
that
wait,
which
wait,
exists.
stand by one. You are deluding yourself. You are creating a reality that's external to the reality that the rest of us, or the
I'm
lot
not
of us.
talking about God right now. I'm talking about the inquirer. Anything that exists.
I'm talking about you and your five senses, and mine too. You know,
Okay. Who's asking the question?
which question?
The question is who's inquiring here?
What's your point? What's your point? Make your point.
That you cannot justify what you're saying right now because you're the one who's making the statement.
You
You must
have
exist, right? Don't
base,
worry
base
about me. I'm
no,
talking about you.
stand by one. You as every man, okay? You as every man have decided for whatever reason, for reasons that make sense to you, to invoke some additional condition for the existence of the universe, which is not justified.
That's not what I'm talking about right
by
now.
one, which is not sustained by or supported by observation of the natural world. You have decided that there is some additional force
No, I
somewhere
haven't
out
made
there.
that course.
That's what you
In
just
step number
said.
1, I have not made that assertion. All I'm talking about is the inquirer. You, the inquirer, are you an illusion?
Am I an illusion?
Yes.
I don't think so.
Well, otherwise you wouldn't be questioning it, right?
I don't know. I've never been an illusion before. How do they operate?
Okay, if
How
you
do
want
they
to say you are
behave?
an
I
illusion,
don't
then
know.
all inquiry is off. Do you agree with that?
No, I don't.
Well, so there's inquiry by the illusion.
Stand by one. You keep jumping in. You haven't yet made a point. And let me see if I can clarify what you're trying to do here.
Oh, my atheist
Wait,
friends are going
wait,
to be
wait.
all over me for laughing.
My volume is off here. No, you're saying, and I'm not sure that you're correct about that, that because you have a cerebral cortex and because you have these thoughts and these other kinds of things, therefore you experience some kind of an existence.
No, do you have a cerebral cortex? Is that an illusion or is it real?
I don't know. I haven't taken it out to have a look at it. I don't know.
You're grasping at straws, my friend.
I'm trying to figure out where you're going with this. I'm trying to figure out what your point is. Can you just make your point?
I've already
here?
explained it. So number 1 doesn't work.
No, stand by one. Let's do number 1 again because I think it works just fine.
Who is asking the question?
You are asking the question.
No, you are. You're the inquirer here. It doesn't matter whether I exist or not. You know that you exist, right?
I think so.
Okay, if you don't think so, then there's no question to ask, right? It's really simple.
And your point is what?
My point is that something exists.
Something exists. Okay, let's leave it at that. Something exists.
So number 1 doesn't work. Number 2 is...
Wait. Stop that. Something exists. What is there more to your point than that?
No, it's just that it doesn't work. If something exists, it's not an illusion because you wouldn't be asking the question.
Exists in what sense? In what sense? Let me ask you this. Does Harry Potter exist? Does Harry Potter exist? Remember,
in somebody's mind, yes.
I tried to go this place. I tried to go here with you to begin with, and let's see, defining the terms. What do you mean when you say exist? You mean in a physical existence. In this context, you're talking about in a physical existence.
No,
well, well, then what the hell are you talking about?
I'm talking about at least a consciousness who can ask questions. Maybe your body's not even real. I'm talking about you as a person, the person of Dennis.
That's just kind of a stupid place to go. That's just kind of dumb.
Okay.
Let existence, when you talk about existence, the word can have several different connotations, several different meanings. One of which is physical existence, which I think you're getting at here. The other is existing. The other is existing within the mind as a fictional character in a book or in a movie or something like that.
You boil it down to the most basic thing you can, and I'll take that.
We would say that both of those cases represent some form of existence, right?
Consciousness.
Well, it's consciousness existence.
There's a conscious existence.
You've been saying that consciousness is evidence of existence all along. Are you still saying that?
Consciousness is evidence of existence.
I think, therefore, I am. Yes, consciousness is evidence of existence. That's been your example all along.
No, inquiry is to ask the questions, which requires consciousness.
Okay.
Is a fundamental understanding that somebody's asking a question.
So then we can define existence in at least 2 different ways, and possibly more than that, but at least 2. There's a physical existence. There's a physical existence which gives rise to consciousness, and then there is an existence within the consciousness. It doesn't have a physical component.
Okay, so I don't.
Okay, so tell me again. What are you talking about then?
I am saying again that if you, the inquirer, exist, everything is not an illusion. I don't know what you're just talking about just before there. It has nothing to do with what we're talking about.
If the inquirer exists, then everything is not an illusion.
Right. Otherwise, there's no question to ask. There's no inquiry. But you're inquiring right now. And if you want to say, oh, well, everything's an illusion, that's fine, then we're done. And don't ask any more questions. Stop doing science, because it doesn't matter, because nothing exists.
But the whole point of you beating up about consciousness has to do with whether there's existence or not. And I'm telling you that there's at least 2 types of existence, one of which does have consciousness and one of which doesn't.
Who cares? Existence. Is there existence?
There's 2 types of existence. Yes.
Okay. So then number one does not work. Everything is not
What
an
do you mean
illusion.
number one does not work? What are you talking about?
If
Explain
something
yourself.
exists, I think you know what?
No. You're running around in circles here, and I'm trying to get to the point. When you say number one doesn't work, tell me what you think that means.
It means that everything is not an illusion.
I don't know that.
That's the first assertion there. If something exists, it is an illusion. We know that's not true because there's somebody asking the question.
Okay, but then if there is an illusion, then you might, as a component of the illusion, think that it exists when it in fact does not. So to say if everything is not an illusion, therefore it exists, is a broad generality that doesn't hold up under scrutiny.
I'm not saying everything. I'm saying you, the inquirer, in order to ask the question, you must exist. You can see that. Your poor wife must really have a hard time when you get an argument.
No. Because you're trying to put words into my mouth and trying to make a point that you haven't supported. So yes,
nobody has made a serious Dennis of this argument. I've been doing it for nearly a decade now. Engaging in these arguments, well, not quite that long to this particular argument, probably 7 or 8 years. Nobody has answered this question. Nobody has refuted it. No, I've never even had a serious challenge to it. Not only have I not lost.
So let me see if I get your point here. Because you ask a question, therefore you exist.
No, because you are inquiring. If you're inquiring as to whether there's existence.
Hold on. Because I'm getting the clear idea that the whole argument here depends on splitting some tiny little white hairs. So I'm saying if you're the inquirer, then you're asking a question. And your point is that if you're the inquirer and you're asking a question, therefore you must exist. And if you exist, then you have consciousness. Is that your point?
And everything is not an illusion.
Everything is not an illusion. There are illusions. So to say that
that's not the point.
Well, wait. You just said everything is not an illusion, and I would disagree. There are illusions.
Are you an illusion?
I don't think so.
How about you? Asking a question. I mean,
how about you? Are you an illusion? Are you an illusion?
I can't be an illusion. Otherwise, I would not be inquiring about illusion.
No. If I'm an illusion and you're an illusion and we're both illusions and these two illusions are having a conversation.
How can they have a conversation when they're not real?
Harry Potter, read the book.
You
lots of conversations
are very difficult to argue with because you just don't want to be wrong.
The reason for that is because I'm not wrong.
Oh yeah, you're a genius.
No, you're twisting definitions and you're trying to build your logic on a sandcastle.
Yeah, you really demonstrated that. I'm sure that people watch this and are going to be wowed by your genius.
What's your number two?
Number two is that which exists. That which exists is self-created.
Okay, stand by one. Now, what do you mean by that? Tell me what you mean exactly by that.
It made itself.
It made itself.
Mm-hmm. Which would be a violation of the law of non-contradiction. It would have to be before it is. It would have to be and not be at the same time in the same relationship. It's irrational.
Can it change forms? Can it change state? Can it change condition from one state to another?
It can't change from nothing to something. That's basically the point.
Okay. Well, what if I told you that it's a subatomic level that quarks and gluons and mesons and other subatomic particles pop in and out of existence all the time?
They appear to, but they don't. They're not. They don't come from nothing. It's not possible that something from nothing. They appear to be that way. Certainly, I would grant that. We got some science to do.
Well, then how do you know that your example isn't the same thing?
Because I know that something cannot be and not be at the same time, same relationship. You already granted the law of non-contradiction as a premise.
Why? Tell me why.
You told me that at the beginning of this conversation. You want to rewind it and watch it. You said, if we cannot have logic, then we cannot make any coherent.
I just gave you an example of where objects do appear.
No, they don't. They appear to, but they don't. Because they cannot be and not be at the same time in the same relationship. They can't create themselves before they are. They can't come out of nothing. They can appear to, but they're not coming out of nothing. Because nothing is no thing.
Where are they coming from?
Well, I don't know.
You grant that it happens, right? You obviously are aware that those things happen.
that we do not
That
understand it.
subatomic particles pop into existence and out
They
of
appear to
existence at
pop
the
into
sum.
existence.
Okay, then what is the mechanism at work there? Explain it to me.
We don't know yet. We're still
Okay,
working on that.
could it be one of those cases where it's happening in a different universe and we don't have the information to transfer from one universe to the other?
Or it could be in this universe and we don't have the information to understand it.
If
Like
it's in
it
this
is.
universe, we would have it. If it's in
No, we
this universe, we
don't.
would have it.
We don't know everything in this universe. You know everything in this universe? There are
Okay, don't do that. That's just stupid. Don't do that.
I know.
What we're talking about here is subatomic particles that in fact do pop in and out of existence, and it happens
No, we
all the
don't.
time.
We don't know
Yes, we
that. You've got
do.
lazy scientists that say that, like Niels
No,
Bohr.
no,
But
no.
no,
But you don't
we
believe
don't
it.
know.
You don't believe it. You don't believe
Einstein
it.
didn't believe it. No, I
I'm
don't.
sorry.
It's irrational. It's foolishness.
Mhm.
Utter foolishness to say that something can make itself before it is. It's irrational.
Well, see this is the point where, as we examine the natural world and we understand these things, then this whole business of having the necessity of some other incredibly strange and wonderful supreme being making all this happens become less and less.
There's nothing strange about it all. It's trivially true.
Less necessary. Less and less necessary.
No, you cannot have contingent being without necessary being, to use your word.
Okay. Your number 2 doesn't work. That doesn't make it, because I just gave you an example of where it's actually happening. Now you deny the example.
You must drive your wife crazy.
And you deny the example, but you know that it happens, and you just cited Niels Bohr and some others who are doing research in this area right now who are seeing it occur right now.
No, they're not seeing it. Our senses trick us. Do you agree with that? They give us false information.
No, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that at all.
Oh, so empiricism is not a changing science.
Stand by.
Science doesn't change.
Stand by. A moment ago, I made the point to you that the 5 senses that you depend on could in fact be feeding you illusions that you took as to be the real thing.
That's
so
right.
now you're telling me that that's what's happening in this case?
I am saying that you're saying that it disappears and appears is not infallible knowledge. That's why science is changing all the time, because we make mistakes. And
sure.
I'm saying you're saying it comes from nothing is analytically false. Therefore,
and discoveries.
It's wrong.
No. Yes, and discoveries all the time in science.
That's right. And they change.
Now stand by one. That's the explanation that we have at this moment. Now, as things progress, as more science is done, more experiments,
we might find it we're wrong.
There might be some different explanation for how it's happening. But as it happens right now, that's the explanation.
Which is a wrong one, because it's irrational.
You don't know that.
I do too. Because
where did you get your PhD? Where did you get your PhD in physics? Where is your PhD from?
I don't need the argumentum ad verecundiam to make the statement that half of the scientific method is logical deduction. And if it's logically incoherent, it's not science. And that's what these guys are doing. It's a fundamental flaw in the way that they are doing their science. It's foolishness.
That's not true. That's incorrect.
Okay, tell me why.
Because
you don't need logic to do science.
Stand by one. You keep interrupting. Please stop doing that. Quantum physics, if you understand it, makes no sense at all. Because all kinds of crazy things that we think we know.
Then you don't understand it, by definition.
Stand by one. All kinds of crazy things that we think we know happen differently at the quantum level. And this is one of them. Particles pop in and out of existence at the quantum level. That happens. What's your number 3?
Number 3 is that which exists is self-existent.
Okay, now explain that. What does that mean exactly?
It means that it is not dependent in any way for its existence. It cannot change. It cannot undergo metamorphosis.
Wait. Existing and changing are 2 different things. Initially existing, and then changing after existence has been established is 2 completely different things.
No, if the existence is established, that was a change, right?
Change from what? Change from not existing?
Well, that would be option 2.
So what are you talking about?
Well, it can't be option 2, and it can't be option 3 says that if it is self-existent, it can't change. It cannot.
Okay, now self-existent. Define that. What are you talking about? Tell me what you mean by that.
It exists. It's called aseity. Look it up. aseity.
Just explain it. That's all.
It means to exist in and of itself. It's not dependent. It cannot undergo metamorphosis or change, because if it changes, that's the definition of contingent. It either could be or not be. It's subject to change. It can be acted upon by another. Every time you change because something has affected you, it has acted upon you, and you are subject to whatever that is that brings the change to you. When you stub your toe, you are subject to the that object at which you kicked, and it brought change to you. You have what's called passive potency, and you had active potency when you kicked the object, and then it acted upon you when you went ouch, and it put a dent in your toe.
So okay, well, that's obviously an outside force. What happens then when you read a book, when you learn?
That's right. You move from one state to another. You change in your understanding and in your being. That book exercised some, the information exercised an active potency upon you, and you change.
But the book, once again, is an inanimate object, and the changes as they occur are totally interior, completely interior.
But the information was external to you, and it had an effect on you.
The information was external. Yeah, the information was external.
Yeah.
So a self-reliant object cannot undergo change. Is that what you said?
Right. It's self-existent.
Self-existent. But then we just gave two examples where that happens.
And that which was involved is contingent. That's my point. Everything that we know is contingent in this universe. If it changes, it's contingent
on something else.
Yeah.
Some outside force.
Right. And that outside force itself is contingent because it is subject to change as well.
Let me think of an example where that would not be true.
Okay.
So you have a star. You have a star somewhere in the universe, totally self-contained. Totally self-contained. And as it ages, it burns up the hydrogen in its own core, and it begins to collapse. Okay, it begins to collapse, and all this is being contained within itself. There's no outside forces acting on it.
Is it moving? Is it changing?
It's changing as it exhausts its own internal fuel.
And does the surrounding environment have any effect upon it?
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
It doesn't.
Is it made up of parts?
Particles, sure.
Okay. Then it's not simple. Therefore, it doesn't matter whether there's something outside it or not. Those agents, or not agents, those matter that makes up the star, it is all contingent and changing. Do you agree?
Yeah, but it's all self-contained. There's no external forces.
What do you mean by self-contained?
It's
made of composite. As long as it's a composite, it's not self-contained because
it doesn't have any outside forces of any kind acting on it. It doesn't have any outside forces.
It has entropic factors within itself which are changing. Therefore, it's not self-existent.
Oh, wait a minute. How is it not self-existent? Of course it is.
It's changing. Remember, I said that which changes cannot that which is self-existent cannot undergo change because that which changes is
I know, subject. And I'm showing you an example of where that isn't the case.
And I just said it doesn't work because it's a composite.
Well, of course you said it doesn't work. What else are you going to say? Oh yeah, great example. Thanks for showing me. No, in the case of a star, for example, it's totally self-contained within itself. There's no outside forces acting on it.
How did the star form?
Well, standby one. And so as it exhausts its fuel, its gravitational collapse begins and eventually gets to a point where it explodes into a nova or supernova. I don't know. It came from debris in the universe, but that's not.
I thought it wasn't affected by anything outside of itself. This example is pathetic, Dennis.
No, just
You're losing like a big dog.
Stop that. Just stop that. No, once the star is formed. Now you're talking about how way back before the star was a star, and I'm not talking about that at all. I'm talking about at the moment that the star exists, it's fully self-contained. It's not being acted on by outside forces, and it is changing.
Okay, so therefore it's not self-existent.
Because it's changing. So what other category of matter is there then? Self-existent or non-self-existent?
No, all matter is contingent. Because that which changes moves from actuality to potentiality, or potentiality to actuality. In other words, changing. It changes states. Like a cup of coffee is potentially cold, but it's actually hot. But it moves because of entropic factors and other external factors. It moves from the actual state of heat to the potential state of cold, where it becomes actually cold. Mm-hmm. So therefore, it is not self-existent. It is an agent that is constantly changing.
Okay. Well, to help me understand that, give me an example of something that is self-existent then.
Oh, that would be God.
God doesn't
exist. That which is pure act.
No. God doesn't exist. God doesn't exist. Where did God come from? Who created God?
If he created, then he would be the second example. He can't create himself. He has to be self-existent. He has to be eternal. He cannot be subject to time or change.
So somebody created God then.
Okay, then that person who created him is God then, right?
And who created that person?
Okay, so you're defining God as a contingent and saying that there's an infinite regress of potentialities without any actuality.
Well, yeah.
That's irrational.
It's not irrational.
You're violating the law of non-contradiction. Nothingness is potential.
It's not irrational in the least. What's irrational is for you to look at the natural world, understand all these natural processes, and yet insist upon some outside force that exists outside of time and space and contain and characteristics, classical characteristics, omnipotence, omniscient, all powerful, all of which are self-contradictory. By the way,
how so?
Contradict. Okay, the most classical. Can God make a rock so heavy that he cannot lift it? That goes back to
because it's a self-defeating argument. It's not a problem with God's being.
Of course it is. Of course it is. That's the point. God is a self-defeating argument. The whole idea is a
the argument is not argument. God, my friend.
The argument is that
it's a silly, stupid, self-defeating argument.
You're right. We've been on it now for 30 minutes or so. The idea that the universe requires some outside force to bring it into existence and to keep it running for all these billions of years is the most illogical and irrational thing you can even imagine.
How so? Because you haven't demonstrated that yet.
Look around you. Look around you. Where is God? Where do you see him? What's
God,
the evidence?
If God is corporeal, then he's limited by space, right?
Well, if God is limited, then he isn't God.
That's right.
There you go.
That's why you don't see him.
You don't see him because he doesn't exist. That's why you don't see him. And you don't see
how
evidence.
Do you justify your existence?
And you don't see evidence of him. I don't, and I don't need to, because I live in the natural world, and I'm a natural creature.
And the natural world is dependent, right?
And I'm a natural creature living in the natural world who doesn't need to justify his existence.
Because it's inconvenient for you to do so.
That's because justifying my existence is not a requirement for my existence.
That's right, because you are very happy to suppress the truth of God and unrighteousness.
So now we move from some kind of a logical, teleological argument into subjective judgments of this or that or the other. Because your arguments are falling apart. That's why.
Oh yeah.
So now we have to talk about subjective ideas, your opinions, and show me the evidence. Where is the evidence? And then tell me.
You are the evidence. You, the incarnate, are the evidence that God
exists. I'm not the evidence at all. Not at all. And you are not either. Because you don't need that to exist. That's not a necessary requirement.
I can tell you that you feel very threatened by my arguments.
Oh, horseshit. That is not a necessary requirement. Don't flatter yourself. Don't even go there. It's just not a necessary requirement. Now, if you want to impose an unnecessary requirement upon the universe and natural world, feel free.
I've not done that. You're the one who's doing it.
No, you have, and that's what you are doing.
Is the universe self-existent?
We're done with that. Let me just tell, because I got to go.
All
what you were doing and what you're trying to do here is to impose upon the universe a condition that it does not require. That's the bottom line. Okay?
All right. We'll leave it at that. Well, thank you very much, Dennis, for joining me.
It's been great.
I appreciate it, and maybe we'll do it again sometime.
Hope so.
All right. We'll see you. All right.
Later. Bye.